Whoa, jump scared ya. Jump scared ya. Of course I did with the thunderclaps. Let's get into it. I'm going to get to the point where I just pop up behind you in your house. I'm going to be like, bang, bang. I'm going to run out the door. Watch. Let's get into it. Coach Colin here. We have Valhalla VFT with another incredible video. He's doing some great stuff. What we're going to touch on in this video, and definitely subscribe to his channel. This is what his channel is called. Definitely subscribe. We're going to be talking a little bit about security prep. The reason that I'm covering his video is because I like his perspective. He's a retired Green Beret, highly decorated, spent a lot of time in Afghanistan. So a little bit about security prep, his view of what should have happened in terms of preparation. He's going to touch on the whole no blood on the hands thing, which I have a lot to say about as well. Then a very odd man that I never saw. I've never seen this footage before, but an odd man who did something very odd when Charlie got hit. And believe me, you're going to agree that what he did was absolutely ridiculous. And the big mistake that his security team made, for those of us that want to be charitable, those of us that have our tinfoil Speedos on, there's two schools of thought, and that is that these guys need to be looked into. And then the more charitable side, once you take off your tinfoil Speedo, is that these guys were just incompetent. That's the two sides of this. There's no in between. There's no they did a great job. That's just not anybody's idea right now. Definitely not Valhalla's either. His name is Nate, by the way. Let's jump into the first clip.
Exfil routes, where all the most dangerous places could be for a sniper to be on, all these sorts of different things. Did they do that? I don't know. All right, but I will say, because I see a lot of criticism about this, right? Like, why didn't you have drones? Why didn't you have someone watching the roofs? Why didn't you have this? Why didn't you have that? I get those takes, but I'm not going to be too critical here because I don't think they have that many guys. It's 5-6 people from what I could see. And again, it's, a podcaster security team. It's not like this is the president who's got Secret Service and all this crazy shit with him. So do they even have the manning for that? I don't know. And if we actually look at the venue.
Guys, this is a serious message. As you can see, I'm not even in uniform. I'm not wearing the signature hat. So, very serious message. 59% of you are not subscribed. Please, guys, hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 500,000 subscribers. The road is long, but I know that we can do it. Please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the notifications. Please hit the like. If you want to keep seeing this content, if you want to help me move from being the Joe Rogan clip guy onto better, greener pastures, you got to hit the like. You got to hit the subscribe. It helps me tremendously. That is all I ask. Let's get back to the episode.
Here is the actual angle from where the shooter was. As you can see, there's this whole place is surrounded by rooftops. Would have been incredibly difficult to have eyes on everything all the time, right? Here's another angle from it. And then the crowd, obviously absolutely massive. So when you have this tiny security detail, this is kind of way too many people for way too small of a team. But this is where some failures come in, right? If you know you're going to have this massive venue with thousands of people and you only have a few security detail, also hardly any cops on the ground, and where's the paramedics vehicle? Where's the ambulance? At any event I've ever seen this big, there's one on station on standby. So that tells me that this security detail didn't do what they should have done in pre-coordinations with.
Now, I just need to interrupt quickly because he said one thing that I definitely disagree with. And maybe even, his thought process, maybe even Charlie had this thought process as well, is that this is a podcaster that they're setting up security for. Back when they first got the contract, I would agree. It was just Charlie Kirk, young guy, just trying to make it, when he decided he needed security and the two security teams fought for the contract and the one that got it undercut, and that's how they got the contract. It wasn't necessarily because of their merits or their experience. It was fine at that point. When you get to the point where you have made somebody president, you have become one of the most powerful voices in the conservative movement. Tucker Carlson's detail is not like this. Ben Shapiro's detail is not like this. It's bigger. It's way more professional. So when you get to the point where you become this powerful person, right? I'm not going to say, well, Charlie, maybe he's just very modest. Everything is happening because of God. That's how a Christian's going to see it. But the security detail should have looked and said, this is much different from when this guy was 25 years old. He's 31 now. This is vastly different, and we should be operating differently. This is probably one of their biggest accounts, I would think. Hire some more guys. Do the due diligence that comes as your clients get more powerful. Because he wasn't just a podcaster by the time that shot went off. He was something way bigger, way, way bigger. Anyway, let's keep going.
Law enforcement and with paramedics in the hospital. You should have had all of this coordinated beforehand for something this big, because even if there wasn't an active shooter or anything like that, I mean, with this many people in one location like this, anything could go wrong. Heart attack, stroke, who knows, right? Bee sting, allergic reaction, and you have nobody on standby, let alone an active shooting. Very, very odd. Pretty massive failure in that regard from a planning and preparation standpoint, from both the college and Charlie Kirk's team. All right, so again, these first ones we're kind of skimming over because we really don't know, right? I don't know what the plan was ahead of time. I don't know what the coordinations were. I'd have to literally talk to somebody, part of that security detail, to know that. So now let's get into the meat and potatoes.
So just what he said there. I did realize that because you see the video as he's being brought to the truck and they go off to the hospital. And that's the reason why they did that, because they didn't have an ambulance. And honestly, they should have. They very much should have had an ambulance. And it's odd that they didn't. And listen, yeah, I try to be rational. I'm always trying to be balanced, but buddy, I got no pants on. I'm wearing a tinfoil Speedo right now. The upper thighs are exposed. That's how I'm rolling right now. So who was in charge of that? Whoever was in charge of that, I'm sorry. And I know people don't like it because it's like, oh, don't attack I'm not attacking anybody, but that person should be looked into. If you're following every single lead, you go, like, who's investigating this saying, okay, there's no ambulance. There should have been. Huh. Okay. Who made sure there was no ambulance? Who was supposed to organize that? It seems like such a glaring mistake, you know? I don't know, man. And that's for anybody, because you'd kind of be liable if there was someone in the middle of the crowd and something happened, God forbid, heat stroke, heart attack, anything, you know, you need to help that person right away. As turning point, you'd need to help that person. They came there for you. You have, I don't know, permits over that location. It would fall on your shoulders. So why wouldn't there be anything like that? It's just like George Zinn. You know, that one guy shows up at the first turning point event he's ever been to, and it's the day that somebody takes a shot, and he stands up and says, "It's me, I'm the shooter, I'm the shooter." It's just so, like, that's the time, that one time where the shot lets off, you don't have an ambulance there. Watch other turning point events. There's an ambulance on set. All right, let's jump in here. We're going into the whole no blood on the hands. And I like where he's going with this. Listen to this.
Because you know how YouTube is, obviously, but we've all seen it, right? They all run over, they jump over the table, and that brings us to the next very, very sketchy thing that, of course, we've talked about, a lot of people have talked about, and that is the actual treatment through trauma medicine of Charlie Kirk. We've shown Heavy Duty Country's video multiple times. You can watch all these guys. Nobody's got any blood on their hand whatsoever. There has been a few videos that have come out since then that have claimed, actually, it's a guy, a different security guard that treated Charlie Kirk, and we know that because he had some blood on his hands. But again, we have to be very careful when we use selective evidence and we don't look at things in very close attention to detail. So let me show you some things. All right, now let's take a look at these photos, okay? So what I see some people saying is, no, this guy's got blood on his hands, so he was the one that treated and tried to save Charlie Kirk's life. And time out. Let's actually look at this guy close, right? We do see a little bit of blood on his hands. Also, what we really see is most of the blood is up here in his biceps and his forearms. And we'll see that in a different picture here as well. Okay, so a little bit of blood on the hands. But again, as you see, most of the blood stains up here in the forearms and biceps. Now, what does that tell us? Does that tell us because he's got a little bit of blood on his hands, he was the one with his hands buried in Charlie Kirk's neck? Maybe. I hope so. I mean, I really do, guys. I do not want it to be the case that nobody tried to save Charlie Kirk's life, because that brings us into massive complications. However, you're not going to get blood up in your forearms, right? And your biceps, primarily, what you're going to get that from is if you're carrying Charlie Kirk at the bloodiest part of his body, which He was. All right, so when I talk about attention to detail, this is where it comes in, and selective evidence, right? Because if we just saw those pictures of him with blood on his hands, now we could say, oh, that's what it's from. But then when we see this video, okay, see who it is here in the front. Here's our same gentleman with his hair, his collared shirt. Let's actually see how he's carrying Charlie Kirk as we go through here. What we see here, he's got both hands up underneath Charlie Kirk, carrying him like this, right? What we also see is Charlie Kirk's very bloody arm, where? All over his bicep and forearm here. Also, his other hand is doing what? It is underneath Charlie's neck, and that entrance or exit wound, whatever we're calling it, left side of the neck, which would be laying right on this guy's stomach and in his belt region of his pants. So, yes, as we can see right here, better angle, all that blood all over Charlie's arms, right in this guy's area, in his arms and his biceps. Obviously would have some on his hands from being underneath Charlie with all that blood coming out of his neck. Better frame there. So when we go back to the picture of this same individual, now all of a sudden the blood in the locations that it's on, again, up here in the biceps, right? Little bit on the hands, on the pants, that you'd expect is that Charlie's neck is laying against him. Now all of a sudden this guy's blood makes sense, right? Because he's the one who carried the bloodiest part of Charlie to the car. Again, doesn't disprove that maybe he was the one who was potentially cheating Charlie that we can't see, but until you show me that, all I see is a guy who's bloody from carrying Charlie Kirk, okay? So moving on with that. And as we saw in this, I'm not sure. Everybody's got their hands down there doing something with Charlie. I would hope there's a med bag, a trauma medicine bag. I don't see any gauze being pulled out. I don't see anything being pulled out and handed off. I see things being handed off to people behind them as they run off. But again, as far as we have the footage now, I don't see proper trauma medicine being displayed at all. Okay, and especially even the guy we looked at with the little tiny bit of blood on his hands, if he had his hands buried into a carotid artery, his whole hands would have been covered in blood. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. As when we had Alex Sticky Green Beret, who is a Special Forces combat medic, come on and explain that to us as well. All right, so where we...
So now with that whole thing, this is something that I was touching on right away, that they didn't have any blood on their hands at all. They were doing something, no real idea what they were doing, but I did have a back and forth. It was interesting that it actually happened, because this guy that I was talking to was actually quite like Nate here. He seems like he has a military background, but for some reason, he just didn't pick up on that. And he was going around X, try to be charitable. I think the guy does great work, even still. But it was very odd that he didn't understand that what he was seeing. I just want to find this guy, Paramount Tactical. He really thought, this is him saying, how was I disrespectful by asking? Really, to be clear, no disrespect intended. I have a short temper a little bit, I don't know if you guys notice that. I try to curve it. What did I say? Oh, we don't have to focus on that. Okay, we're not kids. We're both men. Let's act like kids. Jeez. It must have been morning when this took place. Now, you know what respect is. Let's not make a big deal of it. Oh, jeez. I get like that sometimes. Now, he was showing these pictures, and I actually had to break down these pictures for him one by one, because I was saying that there was clear. Oh, let's clear things up here. That's Tyler. Tyler is not a part of the security detail. Also, Tyler was not one of the men surrounding Charlie when he first got hit. Those men were security, and those men did not have any blood on their hands. Hope that helps. Now, right away, he says, really? That's what I thought was disrespectful. Like, I'm a grown man. Don't give me a one word answer. You're not my wife who's mad at me. You know what I mean? Then he showed me this. He's like, really? So he's showing, again, this is Charlie's hand that he's showing me. And I'm only showing you this because this is the mindset that so many people had. So there's blood on this guy's leg. That doesn't mean he was working on Charlie. This hand here, that's Charlie's hand, sadly. That's exactly what I said when I pointed it out to him. Then you have Charlie's hand here as well that he's showing as fact. And I just wanted to make sure that people understood, like, no, the guys who are working on him, that Nate already explained this. And in my mind, this is Tyler. I think it's Tyler. I'm pretty sure. And then he shows this guy at the end, but this guy's doing the exact same thing. And again, to Nate's point, when you see a guy who has this type of stuff on his hand, like this is by the forearm. This is not you working on somebody. It would be all over your hands. That makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. So, I mean, I just bring that up just quickly because, you know, a lot of people just didn't understand that what we were seeing with those three men that were there, they were not, I don't know what they were doing, but they didn't have their hands at his neck. Because first of all, there'd be no this at Charlie's neck. Whatever they're doing, they're moving around. There would be none of that. It would just be pressure. It would be pressure, and it'd be like, it would be guys ripping their shirts off, trying to cram it in. It would look completely different. So again, we don't know what they were doing. Let's all just be honest about it. We have no clue what these guys were doing. Let's jump into the next one. This is the man who did something very odd. I didn't catch this, and I'm so glad that Nate did. Watch this.
Some things like hand signals and whatever I think are non-starters. Some actual bizarre behavior, and then also what still looks like negligence in the treatment of Charlie. And I'm going to show you more negligence in the treatment of Charlie here in a second. But let's also show this very sketchy behavior from one of, I don't know if it's a security detail, but somebody with Turning Point. And that's going to be this guy right here. He actually does one of the most bizarre things out of everybody. Let's take a look.
And you can see where the man in the gray t-shirt is. So you can see he's at the far right of the screen. Now watch what he does after Charlie is shot. So he turns in the opposite direction and then starts to sprint away from the scene, in which one would assume would be to rush for help. So let's see what he actually does. Thank God he was there to film everything in the parking lot.
If you can't see, this is him. So he ran. Now, you could, if you wanted to be charitable, and this is about as charitable as it gets, he was being cowardly, which who wouldn't? Everybody was running. Nobody wants to get hit with a stray or anything. You have no idea what's happening. Could have been multiple shots. You just never know. Multiple shooters, multiple shots. So you want to run, right? I wouldn't even call it cowardly, honestly, just giving into human instinct. But then he jumps up here and he already has his phone out. Charlie isn't even in the car yet. He already has his phone out and he's filming.
Because that was what Charlie needed the most.
Okay, this is extremely bizarre. What this guy did, and we just saw, the second Charlie was hit, he immediately sprinted and ran around the corner to get himself set up to film this. I mean, you can't argue with that. It's literally, he's in frame doing this, which, again, there's some things in here. There's going to be things in here that are very, very suspicious and some things that maybe aren't. But this one, massively suspicious.
And here's an overhead shot so you can see him on top of that wall and filming Charlie's team carrying Charlie to the SUV.
Okay, that's bizarre. Think about this, guys. Person you work for, your friend, literally just shot in the throat, and your very first reaction is to run up and get into a place that you're going to be able to film him being carted off like that. Not to try to get to a safe location to take cover, but to immediately get your phone out and be ready to film what's coming next. That's incredibly suspicious.
So I have never seen that guy before. I've never seen that footage before. I don't know who that looks normal to, but to me, that looks extremely odd. And it probably explains, I shouldn't even say that. I shouldn't say that. I was going to say, it probably explains why whoever was the first person to report on him being passed away was the first person to report on him being passed away. Now, you're going to have to do a little footwork on that one to figure out who the very first person that knew was. But it's odd because he was all the way in Philadelphia. And that's a little weird for him to know before the president. You know what I mean? So, but I don't know who that guy was. And you can see another clip of him here in the next clip that I'm going to show you guys. You can see him right up there. And he's just filming. Very weird reaction. Running away, I get. Getting behind something, ducking down, peeing yourself, all of that stuff I understand. Pulling out the phone at a time like this, especially if you're one of Charlie's team members, that I don't understand. That I do not understand. So, Yeah, you don't need to prove it to Andrew who wasn't there. You don't need to prove it to his family. You don't need to prove anything like that. Um, so yeah, let's just move on. Now we're covering the big mistake that this security team made. And again, I didn't even book this type of thing, but Nate did. Listen to this.
Under Charlie's neck, one under Charlie's body, carrying out to the car. You're gonna notice something here. No one is applying pressure to Charlie Kirk's neck. Okay, we're talking about a carotid artery wound. Any artery wound, you're going to bleed out and die in anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes, especially with something like the carotid. And so what tells me now, again, these are just people that are not that well trained. Okay, if you can't hold and keep pressure on an arterial wound, you've got no business just dragging his body to a different location without doing that. He's just going to bleed out and die. So you can't convince me that this security detail knew what they were doing when it comes to trauma medicine. I can look at that simply by the way they're carrying him and not continuing to apply pressure on an arterial. See it right here. Those two front guys both have both their arms under Charlie. He'd just be bleeding out of his neck. That blood would just be pouring out if he still has it in his body, if it's not already all evacuated, right? So this type of thing shows me that these people are inexperienced, they're untrained, and they've never been in this type of situation before, right? Like panic is taking over, so we start making poor decisions, like moving the casualty who's just been shot in a carotid artery without applying any pressure while we're doing it. Let's talk about decision-making processes on moving Charlie Kirk. This is something nobody has talked about, and it's extremely important. The decision to move the casualty, okay? Some of you might think, oh, well, he got shot in the throat. We got to get him in a car and get him to the ambulance. All right, high-level trauma medicine doesn't immediately insinuate that. I want to explain something. So what you have is medevac and casevac. A medevac is a vehicle like an ambulance that has trained personnel and actually equipment to help take care of a casualty. A casevac is essentially get somebody in a vehicle and then get them to a place where they can get care taken of them. Why might you make one decision or the other? Okay, let's think about some things, right? People just thought that was the right thing to do. Well, are you sure that was the right thing to do? Or was stabilizing the casualty while you call an EMT and paramedics who can come with equipment that could potentially actually save Charlie Kirk's life the smarter decision? Why might you do one over the other? Okay, so let's think about, we have a giant crowd full of people. Somebody has a heart attack. Right? There's not really anything anyone can do other than maybe CPR or something like that to help that person. They need to get to a high level care as fast as possible because there's nothing we can really do to help them at this moment, right? So casevac, maybe an allergic reaction, a bee sting, all these different things that we can't do anything without something at the hospital that's going to help us. Gunshot wounds, massive hemorrhaging, this changes things completely when it comes to that because if my casualty bleeds out, he's going to die before he gets to the treatment. So it doesn't necessarily make any sense for me to move the casualty if he's going to bleed out because of me doing that, which is exactly what you would see in this situation. So hard decision to make in the moment, but this type of thing should have been pre-planned out. Also, why there's no ambulance there, sketchy to begin with, but you would do this in your pre-site survey. How far away is the hospital? How long would it take for a ambulance to get to us if we need it rather than us going to the hospital? Well, we do know that the hospital there next to UVU is only 2 miles away. An ambulance is going to be there in a couple minutes. You're not in a rural area where you're waiting 45 minutes one way, 45 minutes back the other way. It's a couple minutes. What would have been the proper response, in my opinion, to this type of gunshot wound? For massive hemorrhaging, stopping the massive hemorrhaging is the number one most important thing, and keeping it stopped, okay? Probably what should have been done here, Charlie should have been stabilized at the location. You should have somebody buried in that neck on that carotid artery, trying to keep it closed as best as possible, and basically doesn't leave his neck until he gets in front of a surgeon. And what would have probably made sense is have the EMTs and paramedics come. They could have brought a full body stretcher to be able to carry it in, so that way he never would have had to actually leave that carotid artery to potentially keep him alive. Although I will say, if he was shot through and through the spinal cord, he wasn't going to make it anyway. But again, this is all in the moment. And so the decision to just pick him up and just carry him off somewhere else while he's got a carotid artery open and just bleeding out, that's just a very obvious case of either poor planning or people that really aren't just that well trained. All right, then following that, I'm sure we've all seen
Intentional or intentional, allegedly. Like you have to throw it out there. I mean, I've always said when it came to watching what's going on in the world, right? Everything that was happening. Like, you remember the border, how the border was. I always would say at a certain point you have to discard incompetence. There's only for so long or so many things that can happen for you to say just incompetent. Oh, those people in Congress, oh, those people in the, oh, they're just dumb. They're just, you can only have that mindset for so long, right? Oh, that country, oh, it's just, Canada. It's just a bunch of, you have to, there's only so much where you can go, this is, at a certain point, you have to be like, okay, this is intentional. Like, what's happening is intentional. I'm not saying that about the security team. Okay? Allegedly, you know? I don't know if you heard with Candace, these guys are running around suing, you know? They're suing people left and right because people are talking. But it's so ridiculous. But yeah, you can only say it's incompetence for so long. Yeah, everything he just listed, everything he just went through, these guys should have had that in hand. Like, what kind of security was this? I've talked about the security before, but what kind of security team was this? That they weren't taking these measures at all. Just none. Just no, we're not doing that. Forget it. We're not doing that type of stuff. We're not looking at the roof. They said we can't go on the roof. Forget the roof. We only bring 5-6 guys. I'll be looking at Charlie. This guy will be looking here. This guy has meta glasses on. The guy over here in the white shirt's actually a pastor. It's not even a part of the security team. Why is he, you know what I mean? It's just so many things where you're just like, this is nuts. Severely incompetent or something else. That's all I can see with everything that he just laid out, especially the moving of him. I didn't realize, because he's right. You know, we keep talking about it because, you know, most of us are not that experienced in this type of thing, never seen anything like this before in person. So we're just calling it like, yeah, he got shot. Yeah, he got hit. Yeah. But no, he's saying the carotid artery wound. If you had that type of thing going on, you're not supposed. I didn't know that. Honestly. Right? I'm not in security. Just saying. I'm not in the military. I'm not in security. I'm not in intelligence. So I didn't know anything like that. But those guys should have known that, and they still moved him. And he's right. They didn't put any pressure on the neck. I mean, not to get too graphic, but if it was coming out like that and he fell, and these guys are just doing a thumb war down there and not doing anything, and then you pick him up, what was happening when you picked him up? Like, there's just blood getting on everybody, right? And then what did you do in the car? Did you put pressure there? And if you knew to put pressure while he was in the car, you would have known to put pressure while he was down, when he first went down. So my assumption would be, if you didn't know to do it then, you probably didn't know to do it in the car. So he's talking about 2 miles there to the hospital. We're talking about 5 minutes with that type of wound with nobody putting pressure. That's nuts. Didn't stand a chance with these guys. He didn't stand a chance with these guys. Oh, man. And you know what? You know, aside from everything we just talked about, I mean, good for you to know as well. God forbid you're ever in a situation like this, but if you are, you got to know that you can't move the guy. You got to stabilize him. You got to get somebody to come and pick him up stably. If you are going to pick him up, you have to have that thing sealed up to the point where nothing's coming out. And if he gets up, you have to be able to maintain that pressure. And if you can't, you don't move him. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. We shouldn't be learning this. You know, this security team should have known this. I know I'm talking a little bit in circles here, but it's really hard to not just say what I think. But I've said it already when I brought up it being intentional. Allegedly, maybe, you know? Just doesn't look good. Doesn't look good at all. And then, yeah, it just doesn't look good. And then the saddest part. Here's the saddest part to me. Look.
Erica, would you mind a picture?
It's Erica. And she has the same guys around her. It's the same guys. Look, that's the dude with the meta glasses. The guy with the t-shirt that people thought was doing like an arm signal. That's him. It's the same guys. They're still around that family. I mean, like, oh, man. Still around that family. That's the same guy. They got the same team. Maybe they added a few. But now they're protecting Erica. I don't know, man. That doesn't sit well with me, honestly. Now they're protecting Erica. Man. You know, I hope everything's good. Hope everything, God forbid. But I don't know. I said it in the first video I did. I'm like, these guys need to be fired, obviously. There's no way they did a good job. I mean, somebody dies on your watch. You did not do a good job. Even if you tried, you failed the mission. If your mission is to protect somebody and then they pass away, you failed. You don't then, in my mind, you don't then get to protect their wife too. That doesn't make sense. Because you're not even going to know what to do. And you're going to mess up like you messed up him. I don't know, man. That's just my mindset towards that type of thing. Anyways, guys, just wanted to bring all that to you. It really sucks that he's gone. Man, it really sucks. I'm out of here.